All right, so I'm Dr. Mark Mills, and the person holding the camera is Dr. Carissa Ganong, and we're here at Missouri Western in the biology department, and we're just going to talk to you today about a few organisms, snakes and salamanders and lizards and even a mammal, a hedgehog. So let's start with this little guy here. This is a small-mouthed salamander, like a small mouth. So small-mouthed salamander, and it's in a group of salamanders, a family that are oftentimes called mole salamanders. Why would they call them mole salamanders? Moles are mammals, they dig burrows. Well, these guys dig burrows. They live underground. They do have to go to the water to lay their eggs. Their eggs have to be laid in the water, but they live most of their lives on the terrestrial environment, on land, underground. Now they might come out at night on a rainy night, but if it lives mostly underground and it might only come out at night or even a rainy night, and it is alive, I know he's not moving around, then you might not ever see it because it's always hidden. In fact, this is one of the organisms that we oftentimes refer to as part of our hidden biodiversity because they could be, literally, this salamander could live in your backyard here in St. Joseph, and you might not ever see it. And by the way, these things can live a long time. They suspect that certain salamanders, including smallmouth salamanders, might live 15 or 20 years. So you could have this salamander, a 20-year-old smallmouth salamander living in your backyard here in Missouri. They pretty much occur statewide. There's some places where you won't find them, but they are definitely here in the St. Joe area, northwest Missouri. And once again, they have to go to water to lay their eggs. So it lives in your backyard, but it's going to have to travel when it's breeding season, which is really early. By the way, this is a good time of the year to talk about this. This salamander will often go to small breeding ponds as early as February. I've seen these things moving to a breeding pond here in Missouri the second or third week in February. So very early in the year, they move to a breeding pond and they lay their eggs, and the male fertilizes those eggs, and then the larval salamanders, which are aquatic, live in that pond until they metamorph. Now, when they metamorph, what does that mean? Well, most of you know about tadpoles becoming frogs. So the larval version of this would have gills, and it's about that long, and it would come out, it would lose those gills like a tadpole turning into a frog. It already will have the legs, and then go out into the terrestrial environment. So anyway, the point here is that they do need water to breed. So if your yard is nowhere near any kind of water, then you probably don't have smallmouth salamanders in your yard. But that's a really cool, once again, hidden biodiversity. We'll get it, there's my face, whoops. And really cool animal that a lot of people just don't know exists around here. All right, you want to go over and let's do him next.
Right, so our next animal is a bearded dragon. So this is Sam. This is bearded dragons are a type of lizard from Australia. So Sam is captive bred. She's not taken from the wild. And these lizards are well adapted to living in desert environments. So if you notice her color, notice that she's just this sort of pattern of grays, browns, and tans. So this would blend in really well in a desert environment. Also notice, well, I guess you guys can't touch her, but if you ever get a chance to touch a bearded dragon, they have really rough, scaly skin, so this prevents them from losing water in dry environments. And these animals are omnivores. That means they eat both animal and plant material. So in the wild, Sam would eat plants as well as insects, other small arthropods, invertebrates. And in captivity, she eats crickets and basically a lot of salad. So these guys have a lifespan of about 8 to 12 years in captivity. Okay, we're going to switch back to Dr. Mills with our next animal.
Okay. This is a prairie king snake. Try to get him unwrapped here a little bit so you can see his face. I get a close-up of his face. And he's flicking his tongue. You can see his tongue coming out. So this is, once again, a prairie king snake. Similar to the smallmouth salamander, these occur statewide. Relatively common snake in the state of Missouri. It is a member of a group of snakes that we call constrictors. What that means is that it wraps its body around its prey like a mouse or a rat or something like that, and it constricts it. It squeezes it. Now it doesn't crush it. It constricts it to the point where it can't breathe. So basically it suffocates its prey. And then once it suffocates the prey, it swallows it, typically head first, whole. So there's no chewing or anything like that. They just swallow it whole. And look at that little tiny head. I mean, this snake can eat a full-grown mouse, even with that little tiny head, because they can unhinge their jaws. Their jaws actually unhinge at the sides, but also in the middle. And their head can expand and their mouth can expand. It'd be like you swallowing a great big watermelon without any problem. And so they eat things like mice. They will also eat things like lizards. And because it's in the king snake group of snakes, the reason they got that name king snake was because they eat other snakes. So that's not their main diet, but they will eat other snakes, and including venomous ones. So king snakes can eat like a copperhead. And I've had people ask me, oh, well, are they immune to the copperhead venom? And that's actually kind of a tricky question, because they have some resistance to it. But if the copperhead really bit them good and injected a full amount of venom, it would probably kill it. So it's not immune to it. It has some resistance to it. But honestly, they're just good at not getting bit. They grab the copperhead, they wrap its body, and they basically immobilize it so fast that the copperhead can't bite them. And so anyway, the point here is they eat mice, they eat lizards, they eat other snakes. And similar to the smallmouth salamander that I talked about earlier, they spend a lot of time underground, going through mammal burrows, searching for food. And so this is another one of those animals, even though it's a common snake in Missouri, maybe you've never seen one of these before. You've seen garter snakes and things like that, maybe black snakes, but this might be some species that maybe you're not really that familiar with. A lot of people, actually, I mentioned copperheads. For some reason, a lot of people do mistake these for venomous snakes, maybe because of their pattern, but it's not. It's a non-venomous snake, and once again, one that is actually quite beneficial because it eats mice and things like that are harmful to us. All right, so we want to do the hedgehog next. Let me, I'll just put this guy down. I'll use the pan over that way.
All right, so we talked so far about two kinds of reptiles. That was the snake and the dragon, the lizard, and one kind of amphibian, the salamander. And the last animal we're going to look at today, it looks kind of like a breathing pincushion right now, but this is a hedgehog. So this is a type of mammal, the same group of animals that humans are in. These are warm-blooded, can produce their own heat, and have hair. And in this case, the hair is highly modified. And I'll give Dr. Mills the camera, and I will
look at those spines.
Yeah, see if the hedgehog, his name is Sonic. So Sonic the hedgehog. See if he'll let me pick him up. Atta fellow. So there, if you want to get a close-up of the face there. So he, kind of like the bearded dragon that we just talked about, Sonic in the wild would be an omnivore. He would eat both animals, so small insects and other small animals, as well as plants and fruits. And in captivity, hedgehogs eat mostly pelleted food, but also dried insects and fruits. And this is another animal that is not native to Missouri. So we talked about the dragon that's from Australia. Hedgehogs are from Europe, Africa, and Asia. And there's 17 different species in the wild, but in captivity, most of them are some hybrid of a type of African hedgehog.
Whoa, extreme close-up.
Yes, he's very curious today. So these are also nocturnal, which is why it's he doesn't always want to wake up to be talked about in the daytime. It'd be like you being woken up in the middle of the night for a presentation. So typically they'll be active at night and then sleep during much of the day. And they can live about 4 to 7 years in captivity, depending on the species, and as with most animals, their lifespans would be shorter in the wild.
So where would I find a hedgehog? Maybe you already said this, but where would I see one in the wild?
That would be Europe and Africa.
Yeah.
And some parts of Asia.
So you'll notice that he's actually, you can tell his little nose, he's sniffing, he's smelling the environment around him. If you remember a little bit ago, we saw the snake's tongue coming out, and it was also smelling the environment around him. Now, snakes have nostrils. They can smell just like you and I and this hedgehog, but they can also taste the air with that tongue. So it's another way of just sensing the environment around them. So, you know, you can see his little eyes. He can see. He can hear. They have really good sense of hearing, so they can hear really well, including frequencies of sound that we can't hear. And but you'll notice he's really sniffing. He's sniffing the environment around. Maybe he's hungry. I don't know. So, you know. So anyway, just because he's a mammal and the snake is a reptile doesn't mean that they don't share things like sense of smell and touch and taste and things like that. Even that salamander has nostrils and can smell the environment around him. And if you look at this bearded dragon, I'll come back over here and we'll get a side view of his head. You can see he's got nostrils there on the front. I can almost see them. But you'll also notice that he's got this ear hole right there. So there's his ear. So you can see that he's got an ear, and so he can hear and see and taste and as well to sense the environment around him. All right. Is there anything else? I think that's it. So we appreciate that you stopped by and were able to share some of these really cool, interesting animals that we have here on display. And we just hope that next year you'll actually be able to come to Missouri Western and have Super Science Saturday in person. And maybe you'll see some of these same animals and be able to actually touch them and see them in person. All right. Thank you very much.